Let's talk about the job market, John. It's weird. The benefits are shrinking and
It's
HR has
right.
homework. So they say,
So
correct?
they say.
They say.
So
Who's
they
they,
say.
John? What's going on?
All right. So normally, Chuck, right? We do an episode and we choose one workplace issue. We dig deep into it and we try to make sense of
Dig. Right. And today,
it. Today, we're emptying the old workplace junk drawer onto the table.
oh sure, I gotcha. The stuff the chatter that we chatter about, we don't really pull together, kind of like the old batteries, the three paper clips in that old drawer, the keys that open nothing, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like one of those things that we have a lot of topics. A lot of topics are hot. And so there's things that come up, and Sam's like, we can't do that today. We can't do that today. Let's get to it later. That kind of stuff. And I was reading these articles, and it made me say, wait, what is happening at work?
Yeah, so this is more of a buffet, shall we say, right? Rather than a deep dive.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. And you know me, Chuck, I've always been suspicious of
Oh,
buffets.
I
Not a
love
big fan.
buffets. I love Mr. Love, Golden Corral.
Oh, Golden Corral.
Back
Yeah.
in the day,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. But yes, I get you, because you go to the buffet, there are foods that should not be touching each other, like the mac and cheese and the shrimp, you
Yeah,
know.
right. But nobody knows how long that shrimp's been sitting there. That's my concern. But we have several stories today that deserve our attention for sure.
Yeah.
We have a job market in which people are applying for thousands of positions and taking interviews in food pantry lines. At the same time, hundreds of thousands of people are leaving the labor force entirely. Some large employers are cutting benefits that employees once considered untouchable.
Mm.
And because that is not enough, the EEOC and Department of Labor have been busy giving HR professionals some summer reading.
Right. Yes, I've seen some things come through, even just like yesterday, I think.
Oh, really?
There were a couple of opinion letters that I'd like to get into probably
Okay,
the
yeah.
next from the wage and hour division,
Okay,
and
yeah,
it
yeah,
had to
yeah.
do with travel and time spent by employees receiving pages, calling clients.
Oh, yeah. We
And
talked
it's
about that today. We're going to talk about that today. We'll dive into that for sure.
oh yes, okay.
Yeah,
So you're just going to throw these things at me.
I
I love
am
it.
because you're
Thanks
not
for
paying
preparing
attention.
me.
All
Thanks
right.
for preparing me. Okay,
Well, don't talk
got
to
it.
me. Talk to the producer.
Okay.
Talk to your assistant.
All right. Well, we're ready to go
All
because
right.
what caught me about that was time spent receiving pages. I mean, is anyone paging anyone anymore?
Well,
Like,
yeah, but yeah. Well, we'll get into that for. So
okay.
let's begin with an article that was in the Business Insider, written by a reporter who had interviewed more than 100 job seekers over several years. His conclusion was that the stories have become sadder and
Oh,
stranger. One
yeah.
former accountant was waking up at 3 in the morning to apply for jobs and eventually applied to be the Chick-fil-A cow mascot. A Gen Z applicant used AI to submit 1,300 applicants in a month. Another person applied more than 6,000 jobs during a 16-month search and once took an interview from his car while waiting in a line at the food pantry.
Wow. So, and this is a legit article too, legit
Yeah.
Business Insider. Okay. 6,000 jobs. I can't even fathom making 6,000 deliberate career decisions
Yeah.
in
Well,
my
I'm not
life.
even sure I made 6,000 deliberate decisions about what to eat for lunch.
Yeah, well, you have. In fact, you've just made the same decision here repeatedly. So,
That may be true. But think about what happens when somebody applies for 6,000 jobs. At that point, the process has stopped being a meaningful evaluation from an employer and an applicant. It becomes a volume contest.
yeah. And I know employers, and I got to tell you, I'm on that end too.
Yeah.
They say they're receiving too many applications. Uh, so they are adding technology to screen them. We have not gotten there with our systems yet. We're still reviewing them by hand, shall we say. But I think applicants are believing technology is screening them out.
Yeah, and then so when that happens, right, there's an applicant and they're like, oh, they're screening them out, I better add technology to create and submit more applicants, and then the employer receives even more applicants.
Yeah, and so I got to tell you, I had a friend that's looking for a job, and they got an automated email recently, and it was for I think it was for part-time HR consultant, right? So, when I was a consultant, we're always looking for those part-time gigs,
Right.
Type of thing. And the automated email basically said, "Thank you for applying. We had over 750 applicants in the 3 days that the job was open, and unfortunately we were not even able to review your resume." And he sent it to me. They said, "You got to check this out. I mean, this is crazy." It's literally an email saying, "Hey, thanks, but we didn't even look at your stuff. But hey, just letting you know." So I thought that was pretty crazy. So,
Well,
adding that
it's
tech.
funny, Chuck, that you say that, because I think it's interesting to think at least he got an email, right? At least
Right.
there was some kind of response saying, look, we didn't look at it. Sorry. We had enough people up front. Boom. Versus, oh, I never heard from him. Now he doesn't have to follow up and spend time and go, oh, should I, do that? So, yeah.
Yeah. So let's just reiterate what we're talking about here, folks. Applicants believe technology is screening them out, so they add technology to create and submit more applications. And then, like John said, then the employers receive more applications. And so I'm just going to come back like a ping pong and say, and so they add more technology.
Right. Now we have an arms race, right? Literally an
Right.
arms race, and we're both trying just to get past each other's automated systems. Probably not happening.
Right. Meanwhile, hiring managers are saying, "Why can't we find anyone?"
Exactly, right? There's this fundamental process that's broken. When the people hiring and the people trying to get hired are both frustrated by the same process. The article also describes job seekers attempting to discover the secret rules, right? And I think when I read the article, they were talking a lot about going to TikTok, going to Instagram, going to Facebook, and listening to the influencers say, well, you need to do this and you need to do this. Right? Should they apply through the LinkedIn or the company website? How quickly must they apply after the position appears? Should they use AI on their resume? Does a referral actually matter? How do I explain an employment gap?
Yeah, and everybody online has an answer. And I mean, in a way, I maybe I should go online and start talking about it. But there's one basic rule, John: upload an updated resume. That's like if I had to, I wish I could shout out, reach through, and tell people upload an updated resume. But anyways, everyone has an answer. There's my answer.
Yeah, right. Everyone, I mean, there's some tons of people out there, right? Everyone sounds very confident, right? They have that confident answer.
Yeah, and usually beginning with, as a recruiter, I can tell you one mistake every applicant makes, and that's
like you did, right?
Yeah, I did.
You're like, no, you don't put an updated resume. And somebody else recruiter's like, well, this thing, right? They're saying the opposite. The applicants interviewed for this article were piecing together their own strategy from social media, networking conversations, AI tools, trial and error. One applicant repeatedly asked, I like this one. One applicant repeatedly asked ChatGPT and Gemini to grade his resume, revising it until both systems gave it at least a 9 out of 10. He believes that's what helped secure a 6-figure job. Another person was working as a mail carrier and a ghost tour guide after losing a communication position, but concealed those jobs because employers would judge him for working outside his profession.
Okay, that second example, I get it. Bothers me, but I get it. The person's doing what we tell people to do. He's working, he's filling those gaps, right? He's adapting, he's supporting himself, yet he believes an employer will see that as evidence that something's wrong with him.
Yeah, because we as in the HR professionals created a very narrow idea of what a successful career is supposed to look like. Every step must appear intentional. Every move must be upward. Every gap must have a compelling narrative. You cannot say, I lost my job, I needed money, and it took the work that was available. honestly.
Sure, even though that may tell something positive about the person, okay, that, hey, they're resourceful, they're willing to work, they can adapt.
Right. But our hiring systems often reward a polished story over an
Yeah.
honest one.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that.
Yeah. And I'm wondering how much talent employers are missing because someone doesn't know how to perform the rituals of the modern job search.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that. There's people that have this great career, then all of a sudden you see that they're working at 7-Eleven as a clerk, and you're like, okay, you were a manager for 5, 10, 15 years. And now, so then you wonder what happened,
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, a lot of times, unfortunately, I may pass over those. But there may be a very compelling story, a very compelling reason. That's an exaggerated thing, but sometimes I'll tell people, hey, if something happened, if you got laid off, the reason you left your last job, I would put that on the resume, because we're trying to figure out and paint a picture when we look at this resume to see who these people are. But anyways, going back to, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, and this is one thing that frustrates me, is we spend a lot of time hiring for experience. Like, were they a manager? Were they this? Versus hiring for a skill set, right? And so if you have a missing skill set or a knowledge gap in your workforce and you're trying to hire somebody for that, it's probably not necessary that somebody already has experience in that, but they have the skill set maybe or the knowledge base that you can hire from and train and get better. So that's,
Yeah. All right. So tell me about the other major theme in the article.
Yeah. So after enough time passed, the conversation stopped primarily being about resumes and interviews. They became conversations about depleted savings, food assistance, credit card date, retirement fears, immigration status. Job search may look like an administrative process from inside the employer, but for the applicant, it can be an emotional and financial emergency.
Sure, which does not mean employers should hire everyone that applies.
Oh gosh, I hope not, right? But it should make us think about the dignity of the process. Do applicants know where they stand? Are we leaving jobs posted that are not actively filling, people?
Yeah.
Right? Are we requiring 5 interviews when 3 would be sufficient?
Sure.
Are candidates repeatedly entering information that is already on their resume? Oh, that's the one I hate. They're like, please upload your resume and then fill out the 22 questions.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's on my resume. Sorry, my pet peeve. Are we communicating with people, allowing them to disappear into the system? Right? We hear that all the time. Like, I applied, I never heard anything again.
Yeah, I know. And are we making it easier to identify the best candidates, or simply the candidate who is best at surviving the hiring process, I guess you could say?
That may be the most important question, right? Are we doing it in a way that matters?
Okay. I could probably go on and on about the recruiting on the employer side, but we do have people applying, for thousands of jobs, and I think you and I were talking earlier that some people are just no longer looking. Correct?
Yeah. So this next story is really about the people who have stopped applying entirely. And honestly, Chuck, I thought, like, when I read this, I was sort of astonished. I was like, oh, that's fascinating. Okay,
so that's not really an uplifting transition here.
Yeah, that was my terrible segue into something else that's terrible. It's not. It's about, but it is a transition. The USA Today reported that approximately 1 million people have left the U.S. labor market during the previous year. In June alone, an estimated 720,000 people stopped working or actively looking for work. The labor force participation rate fell to 61.5%, its lowest level since March of 2021. End of COVID in there. The employment rate also fell slightly, but partly because fewer people were looking for work, not simply because more people had found jobs.
Okay. So that's an important distinction, what you said. Unemployment rate fell slightly, partly because fewer people were looking for work. So someone could look at the falling unemployment rate and assume the labor market is improving.
Yeah, if you look at that one number and that's the only number you're looking at, and you're like, oh, well, unemployment went down a percentage point or a half, well, 0.1 percentage point, you could be like, oh, well, that's some good news. That's good for the economy. That's great.
Yeah.
Until you realize that there's a lot of people that are no longer counted as part of that number because they've left the workplace. Unemployment measures people who are actively participating in the labor force. When someone stops looking, they're no longer classified as unemployed. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that 6 million people outside the labor force still wanted a job in June, and approximately 1.8 million were considering marginally attached, meaning they wanted and were available for work and looking during the previous year, but not within the most recent 4 weeks.
So they've not necessarily decided that they never want to work again, correct? They have decided that looking right now is really not worth the effort.
Exactly. Wow. And I think, right, I think when we see this in the summer, people have been, looking for work. They've been working, they've been hustling, and then all of a sudden they can't find a job and it's summer and they're like, I just got to take some time off.
Right. Take some time off.
Right. So we can see that. But look, the article did not find one simple explanation. Some people became discouraged after extended unemployment. Some older workers retired, helped by retirement savings in a strong stock market, right? And so one of the fascinating things in there was they were talking about boomers and Generation X as they start to retire, that their savings, their retirement accounts are so strong because of the strong stock market. They're like, I'm leaving. I'm getting out of here now, right? Some left because of health concerns. Others faced caregiving costs to return to office requirements that made remaining employed impractical. Return to office policies may have a disproportionate effect on women with caregiving responsibilities, may also have created barriers for some employees with disabilities.
Sure. So, okay. So kind of this is where workplace policy and labor market policy kind of collide. An employer can say, hey, we need everyone back in the office, and that may work for the organization operationally, but for an employee who can't find that affordable childcare or who needs flexibility because of a disability or who knows what legitimate reason, right? It may effectively mean you can no longer work here.
Yeah, and the other group, right? The other group that we're seeing, the sandwich generation who are taking care of their kids, maybe their kids are in school, but they're also taking care of their parents, right? So that means they need to run errands for their parents. That means they may need to do things for their parents, doctor's appointments and stuff, and they can't commute to work and be at work when their parents need that help. And so they're like, I can do it, work my schedule around and do that stuff when I'm working from home, but I can't do it when I'm in the office. So leaders need to recognize that every policy changes the conditions which people make decisions. A return to office policy is not merely a decision about buildings. It changes commuting time, childcare arrangements, transportation court schedules, accessibility, and the amount of energy someone has for work-life balance. This does not all mean the policy is wrong. I'm not saying that, but the consequences are broader than whether employees sit together in the same location.
Yeah. So like you're saying, the policy may not automatically be wrong, right, but there are could be some broader consequences. So we should not assume everyone who leaves the workforce has made the same choice for the same reason.
Yeah, I was thinking about that return to office. It's a little different, but my friend works for a computer company, been there forever, and they're moving their offices. Now, they're not moving their offices far. Right now, he lives about 7 minutes from his office. So great, 7 minutes. But they're moving it to the major city, which is probably about 15 minutes away. So again, not a big deal until you think about where is he going to park, right? Because it's in an urban area. So where is he going to park? How much is parking going to cost? How much is traffic going to be a hassle, right? And it changes that dynamic. It changes that consideration. Should I retire or should I stay on, to kind of think about that? And so some are making that welcome retirement decision, right? They're like, yeah, that's good. Some are choosing caregiving. I need to do that. Some are physically unable to continue. Some are discouraged, and some work would work if employment were designed differently. The danger is reducing all these people to statistics and say nobody wants to work anymore.
Nobody wants to work anymore. The phrase that has survived every labor market in history. Kids these days. Kids these days.
Kids these days. Yeah. I'm sure that statement was probably carved in the walls of the pyramid.
Yes, right. Workers today, no commitment. Always asking for water breaks.
Yeah, and probably demanding someone move the pyramid closer to their home, right?
Yeah, exactly. Can I have an indoor job? Why do I always have to work outside when I'm building these stupid pyramids?
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about benefits, shall we? Benefits, you're saying, and you told me earlier, are beginning to move backward. And, you had mentioned caregiving and flexibility. Maybe that does sound like the perfect time to talk about employers cutting leave, paid leave. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, you know what, Chuck? That segue was so smooth. It was almost painful. That was smooth. You just mentioned caregiving and flexibility. Hey, let's talk about employers cutting pay. So Business Insider reported that Zoom reduced paid parental leave this year. Birthing parents now receive 18 weeks rather than 22 to 24, while non-birthing parents receive 10 weeks rather than 16. Deloitte also plans to reduce benefits for certain U.S. employees in internal support roles beginning in 2027. The changes including reducing paid family leave, cutting annual PTO by 5 to 10 days, depending on role and tenure, ending future pension accruals, eliminating a $50,000 fertility treatment reimbursement benefit for effective employees.
Yeah, okay. All right. I mean, I don't want to be like boo-hoo, oh my gosh, but I got to tell you, no one out there is getting 20 to 12. I mean, yes, there are some people maybe, but most people get 12 weeks of maternity leave, birthing parents, 12 weeks, maybe 13 or 14 weeks to add on. So, 18 weeks is still pretty darn good. Okay. But as long as you're not trimming the free snacks, John.
Right. Yeah. Getting rid of the snacks. No, and I hear what you're saying, but I think what companies feel like, right? So companies feel like is that they have more control, right? That's a signal that like, hey, we have more control. We can do whatever we want to do now.
Sure. Okay. I see.
Right?
I see.
Yeah. And so these benefits are affecting major life decisions, right? It may seem from your point of view like, gosh, I wish we were getting that, or I wish we had that.
I mean, 24 weeks, that's 6 months, right? 6 months.
24 weeks is, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens. You got to pick the right companies, Chuck.
I should have waited till now to have a baby.
Well, yeah, that's probably true, right? Taking, again, right, these changes in benefits affect not only the person's work, but outside of work as well.
Yeah. So, they are changes that are happening, and you are correct. Employees appear to have less leverage.
Yeah, and I think that's what the article was saying, right? The article was raising, look, hiring is slow. Fewer employees are quitting. And I read that somewhere else too, not just this article. There's a lot of conversation right now about people are staying in their jobs. And so, because the alternatives feel limited, right? When employers believe employees are unlikely to leave, benefits that once help attract talent may begin to look like costs that can be reduced.
Yeah. And from a finance perspective, the argument is, I guess, straightforward. Okay. A company needs to lower costs, cost control. Fuel prices are going up. Energy prices are going up. Pay rates may be going up because of, minimum wage laws and that sort of things. It could eliminate jobs. The company could decide, hey, we're going to eliminate jobs, or it can reduce benefits. and maybe reducing benefits may appear to be the less harmful option.
Yeah, it may less immediately harm than a layoff, right? It might be less immediately harmful than a layoff, but the consequences do not disappear simply because everyone still has a badge, right? Employees can remain while changing how much effort, trust, commitment they bring. And honestly, you take that away and say, you know what, we're going to reduce your benefit package by this amount. The employee is going to be like, all right, well, I'm going to reduce my amount of effort by this amount, right? And so this is that measuring retention without measuring the quality of that relationship.
Yeah, right. Hey, we still retained 96% of our employees.
Yes, but are they staying because this is a great place to work or because the exits are temporarily blocked?
Okay. All right. Well, different forms of retention, I guess.
Yeah. And this is where leaders can make a short-term decision that creates a long-term cost, right? And so you could lose people over time. Okay, we're going to save money, but what's the money in future turnover costs? What's the cost of institutional knowledge leaving, right? All of that goes in there.
Yeah. Company may discover its employment reputation may not recover as quickly as the job market. What I've noticed, though, is there's a base of benefits, medical, dental, vision, long-term disability, short-term disability that most companies offer. And then the variable at times will be how much is the company contributing toward those, how much is the employee contributing, and then any extra benefits, like you mentioned, the extra time off for childcare and other things. So I guess, if they're cutting back on benefits, but it sounds like they're cutting back more on the icing rather than the cake. I think when you start cutting into the cake a little bit more,
I agree. I agree with what you're saying, but I think your perspective is different because if you always had those benefits, let's say you've always had those benefits and you're like, all right, I know I'll get 22 weeks off or 24 weeks off.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I plan on that. Like, okay, well, I'm pregnant now. And all of a sudden that comes, that feels like a portrayal, right? It feels like, now I get it, right? From some people's perspective, they're working at the local convenience store and they're like, I wish I got benefits. I wish I got health. I got dental. I don't even get that. It's a different story, right? And so I think, again, there's this stratus in here we have to be careful of, but I do think we have to look at and just understand when we change things for the employee. I think this is the message we're trying to get to. If you change things for the employee, it's going to impact their trust, their effort, their loyalty. And sure, it may be good for the company and the investors, but what does that say? What is that message? And how long is that going to be impacted in your organization?
Okay. All right.
For now, this has been HR Stories. What makes work better?
For now, have a great week.